I'm Jeremy.
I'm Ron.
And this is We Are the Church, Let's Act Like It.
Week 5. Glad you're here.
So last week we talked about the Jerusalem Council and how they came to a decision on what the requirements for being part of this new movement that's going to be ultimately known as the church. And so as they had these new requirements, Paul took his friends. It says that he and Barnabas parted ways and he picked up Timothy and Silas is another one of his traveling companions. And they're going to head off on missionary journeys to tell everybody in the Gentile world who Jesus is and start new churches in their towns.
Paul is using this team of people to go plant churches everywhere they go, and then leaving people in place that they have discipled to lead the church there forward. Sometimes he's leaving one of his disciples in place, and that'll come find them later.
So as they start to head out, Paul gets this vision. He has in his mind where he thinks that this missionary journey is going to go, but he finds out he's actually going to be heading into a different place because the Spirit calls him, this vision of a Macedonian man just kind of beckoning to them, come over to Macedonia. And that's where they launch out in their ministry. And it starts with a woman named Lydia.
Paul and his crew don't go to the synagogue because, well, there isn't one. They find Lydia down by the shore of a river because that's where people would worship Yahweh, the God of Israel, when there wasn't a synagogue. Everybody would gather down in some place that felt sacred. And that's where they went, and they told her, as well as all the rest of the people around her, about Jesus.
Right, she's a person of means, and so she hosts a church in her home. And that becomes their first stop in Macedonia, where they get a foothold and then they start to launch out from there because these journeys are going to take a long time. So from Philippi, they get into some trouble there, and that's where it all starts for Paul and Silas. They're in prison, they're getting beat. It says, they're casting out demons and everybody's getting upset because this sort of thing's not supposed to happen because these Jews, that's how they saw them, these Jewish fellows are coming here, causing problems, taking away our means for making money, and they're talking about these foreign gods and really messing things up. And that's what happens throughout this entire missionary journey.
They are certainly upsetting the apple cart everywhere that they go, and it is costing them time, money, and their freedom.
So as they go from town to town, they are looking to find, what's a place that we can have a common ground with these people. And that's when Paul launches into his sermons, like with the one we see on Mars Hill in Athens, where he talks about their philosophy. He talks about them being a religious city. This is where Paul really starts to become more creative, and you actually start to see how much perseverance he and Silas have, because they're constantly getting knocked down. I think at a certain point you'd be like, well, maybe I can find something else to do with my time rather than just get thrown out of cities and beaten.
Right.
But it's this perseverance that God is leading them in the Spirit into this new place where they're sharing who Jesus is, and they're trying with everything they have.
Yeah, you really see how Paul and Silas are using the everyday things within these Greek cultures to talk about who their God is and who Jesus is, and inviting people to be a part of what they're doing.
So as they're setting up leaders and churches in different cities, it says that they start to find these partners in ministry. And that leads him to, I think, probably one of the earliest successful churches that Paul is a part of planting, and that's in Ephesus.
Yeah.
And so he finds Priscilla and Aquila. He finds Apollos. These are a couple guys and a gal that are just very talented. And so Paul leaves them there and starts to make his way back.
Yeah, Paul knows that he's heading back to Jerusalem, and he's going to start visiting everybody along the way, almost like he knows something bad's going to happen.
And so as we see this story unfold, you get a feel for the type of person that Paul is, the type of people that he travels with. They're not people who are easily thrown off their game. They're not people who are going to give up. They really do have that deep sense of perseverance. And I think it's important that as we start to look at our faith, as we start to look at the way in which we encounter the world around us, we can get discouraged, but I think there's encouragement in the way that Paul handled all of these things that happened to him.
Right. It'd be very easy to give up, to decide you're going to do something easier than this, to to take your ball and go home, but he doesn't. He stays for the long haul. He plans something that lasts forever.
As he's bringing the message into this Gentile world, doing something that's never been done before, he really is laying a new day for the church, because they're now going to spread from being a church that is primarily Jewish into a church that really over time becomes primarily Gentile.
Right.
And this is really the turning point for all of that to happen.
It is. And Paul is heading back into Jerusalem where things are not good. Things are not good at all, and it's going to lead to the destruction of Jerusalem. It's going to lead to him being arrested and sent back to Rome, and all of it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into next week.
All right, enjoy your discussion.